Unlock life-changing insights in minutes. Books in Bites brings you powerful book summaries that turn reading into action. We all love having choices, right? Feels like freedom, like the world is our oyster.
It does, doesn't it?
But what if I told you that too much choice could actually be making us less happy? Today we're diving into Barry Schwartz's The Paradox of Choice. To explore this counterintuitive idea, get ready because this one might just change how you look at decision-making.
I think one of the most fascinating things about this book is that Schwartz doesn't just present like a problem, but he offers a framework for understanding it. He introduces this idea of maximizers versus satisficers, and it really gets to the heart of how we approach choices.
Okay, so remind me, what's the difference between these two types? It feels like a light bulb moment waiting to happen.
Okay, yeah. So a maximizer is that person who always wants the absolute best no matter what.
Okay.
They're the one spending hours researching every single option, agonizing over every little detail. On the other hand, a satisficer is perfectly happy with good enough. They've got their criteria, and once something meets them, they're done.
You know, I think I have a little bit of both in me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can get caught up in that endless research loop, especially for bigger decisions like, should we buy this house? Should we not? But then there are other times when I'm just like, yep, this works. Let's move on.
And that's a great point. Most of us aren't purely one or the other. But recognizing these tendencies in ourselves can be incredibly helpful. Schwartz's research actually shows that while maximizers aim high, they often end up less satisfied with their choices. All that pressure to find the perfect thing can be exhausting and lead to regret.
That makes so much sense. I've definitely felt that weight of trying to make the perfect choice, and it's definitely not a fun feeling. So are you saying that learning to be more of a satisficer could actually boost our happiness?
That's one of the big takeaways from the book, and it's backed by research. Satisficers tend to be happier with their decisions because they're not constantly second-guessing themselves. They're not as burdened by the fear of missing out.
This is making me think about all those times I've stood paralyzed in the grocery store, staring at a wall of cereal options. It's classic choice overload. I'm sure everyone listening has been there at some point.
Oh, absolutely. That cereal aisle is a perfect example of how too much choice can actually be debilitating. It drains our mental energy, and we end up making worse decisions or even avoiding them altogether.
Right.
Schwartz calls this decision fatigue, and it can impact everything from our shopping habits to our career choices.
Decision fatigue. That's a real thing. I've definitely felt that drain before, especially after a long day of making choices. So how does this connect to the idea of the freedom trap that Schwartz talks about?
Yeah.
It sounds a bit ominous.
It is a bit of a paradox, right? We're told that more choices equals more freedom. But Schwartz argues that this can actually be a trap. When we have unlimited choices, we also feel this immense pressure to make the right choice.
So instead of feeling empowered by choices, we actually end up feeling burdened by the responsibility. Like if things don't work out, it's all on us because we had all these options.
Exactly. It's this constant pressure to optimize, to make sure we're not missing out on something better. And that's where things get really interesting because this ties directly into how consumerism works.
Right. Advertising is constantly bombarding us with messages that we need more choices, more stuff to be happy. But could it be that all this freedom to choose is actually just fueling our discontent?
Schwartz definitely makes that argument. He says that modern marketing thrives on our desire for choice, constantly presenting us with new products and options. And that can create this illusion that happiness is just one purchase away. But as we're learning, more stuff doesn't necessarily equal more happiness.
So if all this choice is actually making us less happy, what can we do about it? Are we doomed to be overwhelmed by options forever?
Not at all. Schwartz offers some really practical strategies for taming what he calls the choice monster. And one of the most powerful ones is embracing the power of satisficing.
Okay, remind me again how that satisficing thing works. It sounds like we could all use a little more of that in our lives.
It's really about learning to be content with good enough. You don't need to research every single option or spend hours comparing features. Set a reasonable standard for what you're looking for, and once you find something that meets those criteria, go for it.
So instead of endlessly scrolling through online reviews, I should just pick a movie and enjoy it. Or go with my gut feeling when choosing a restaurant.
Exactly. He uses a great example in the book about buying jeans. A maximizer might try on every single pair in the store, agonizing over the fit, the wash, the brand. A satisficer, on the other hand, finds a pair that fits well, looks good, and calls it a day. No second guessing, no buyer's remorse.
I love that. It sounds so liberating and probably saves a ton of time too.
Absolutely. And it frees up our mental energy to focus on things that truly matter.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of what Schwartz is getting at. It's not just about the choices themselves, but it's about how you relate to them.
Right.
That mental shift from I need more to I have enough can be incredibly powerful.
It really makes you question all those messages we get from society about constantly striving for bigger and better.
Right.
What if true contentment comes from appreciating what we already have? This is making me think about some areas in my own life where I could definitely benefit from simplifying and letting go of that need to optimize everything.
Yeah, one of the things Schwartz talks about that really resonated with me is this idea of the tyranny of options. He says that this constant pressure to make the perfect choice can really weigh us down.
It's like we're trapped in this endless cycle of comparison and second guessing, never really able to fully enjoy the choices we make. Exactly. There's always that nagging thought in the back of our minds, like, what if there's something better out there? And this is where Schwartz's discussion of regret becomes really relevant.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does regret fit into all of this?
Well, he argues that one of the downsides of having so many choices is that it amplifies the potential for regret.
Okay.
When things don't work out, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if only I had chosen differently.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening, especially with bigger life decisions.
Yeah.
Careers, relationships, that sort of thing.
Right.
It's like the more options we have, the higher the stakes feel.
Precisely. And Schwartz offers some really interesting strategies for managing regret. One of them is what he calls the regret minimization mindset.
Okay, so instead of trying to maximize our satisfaction with every choice, we should aim to minimize our potential for regret. How does that work in practice?
It's about shifting our focus from finding the absolute best option to making choices that we can live with, even if they don't turn out to be perfect. It's about accepting that every choice comes with trade-offs and that there will always be other options out there.
So it's about finding peace with the decisions we make, even if they're not flawless. I like that it takes some of the pressure off.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that good enough is often more than enough. And that frees us up to focus on enjoying the present moment rather than dwelling on what might have been.
This makes me think about how Schwartz talks about adaptation, how we tend to get used to things over time.
Right.
It's like that new car smell eventually fades, and we start looking for the next shiny thing.
That's such a great point. Schwartz calls this the hedonic treadmill. We keep chasing after happiness, but we never quite seem to catch it because we adapt to our circumstances.
So how do we break free from that cycle? Is it even possible?
Schwartz argues that one of the keys is to cultivate gratitude. When we focus on what we're grateful for, it shifts our perspective away from what we're lacking and helps us appreciate what we already have.
It's like that saying, want what you have, not what you want. It's such a simple concept, but so powerful.
Absolutely, and it's not about denying our desires or pretending that we don't want certain things. It's about finding a healthy balance between pursuing our goals and appreciating the present moment.
It sounds like it's all about being more mindful of our choices, why we're making them, what we're hoping to gain, and how we can approach them in a way that leads to greater contentment.
You nailed it. And one of the things that Schwartz emphasizes is the importance of setting boundaries.
Okay.
We don't have to say yes to everything. We have the power to choose what we allow into our lives and what we choose to focus on.
It's like creating those mental filters to protect ourselves from the constant barrage of choices that we're bombarded with every day.
Precisely. And that can apply to everything from the physical clutter in our homes to the digital noise we allow into our lives.
Right.
Maybe we decide to limit the amount of time we spend on social media or unsubscribe from email lists that tempt us to buy things we don't need.
It's about reclaiming our time and attention and focusing on the things that truly matter to us.
One quote that really stood out to me from the book is, "The secret to happiness is low expectations."
Whoa! That's a bold statement, but I can see how lowering our expectations could take some of the pressure off and help us appreciate the simple things in life.
It's not about settling for mediocrity. It's about recognizing that perfection is often an unattainable myth. When we let go of that need for everything to be perfect, we open ourselves up to a whole new level of contentment.
This whole conversation has really made me think about how I define success. Maybe it's not about having the most choices or achieving the highest level of optimization in every area of my life. Maybe it's about making choices that align with my values, finding joy in the present moment, and cultivating a sense of gratitude for what I already have.
Beautifully said, and that brings us back to the heart of Schwartz's message. True freedom doesn't lie in having unlimited choices, but in having the clarity and the mental space to focus on what truly matters to us.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in that, like cycle of comparison and constantly feeling like we need to upgrade our lives. But what if true freedom comes from letting go of that chase and embracing what we already have?
That's the heart of what Schwartz is trying to get us to see. He argues that this constant pursuit of more, this idea that we always need to be optimizing, actually robs us of the joy and satisfaction that comes from making a choice and sticking with it.
It's like we're so focused on what we might be missing out on that we forget to appreciate what's right in front of us.
Exactly. And that's why cultivating gratitude is so important. When we take the time to acknowledge and appreciate the good things in our lives, it shifts our perspective and helps us break free from that cycle of wanting more.
It's about finding contentment in the present moment rather than constantly chasing after some elusive future state of happiness.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you found yourself applying these ideas in your own life? Has reading The Paradox of Choice changed the way you approach decisions?
Absolutely. I've definitely become more aware of my own tendencies as a maximizer, and I've been consciously trying to incorporate more satisficing into my decision-making process. It's not always easy, but I found that it really does make a difference in terms of my overall happiness and well-being.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
This whole conversation has been a real wake-up call for me. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is the importance of being intentional about our choices.
Yeah.
It's not about mindlessly going through life on autopilot. It's about actively shaping our experiences and creating a life that is aligned with our values and priorities.
Beautifully said. And that's what I love about Schwartz's book. It doesn't just present a problem. It offers practical solutions and empowers us to take control of our own lives.
It's definitely a book that I'll be revisiting again and again. I think there's so much wisdom to be gleaned from it.
One of my favorite takeaways from the book is the idea that true freedom lies not in having unlimited choices, but in having the clarity and the mental space to focus on what truly matters to us. When we can let go of that need for constant optimization, we open ourselves up to a whole new level of contentment and peace of mind.
That's such a powerful insight, and it's a great reminder that sometimes less really is more. Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating deep dive into The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz. I feel like we've both gained some valuable insights into the complexities of decision-making and how we can navigate the modern world with more intention and clarity.
I couldn't agree more. It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you and sharing these insights with our listeners.
And speaking of our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive as thought-provoking and insightful as we have. If you're interested in learning more about this topic and exploring the strategies Schwartz outlines for taming the choice monster and finding greater happiness, we highly recommend checking out his book, The Paradox of Choice.
You can find a link to purchase the book in the description below.
And be sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into fascinating and insightful books that will challenge your thinking and inspire you to live a more meaningful life. We'll be back next week with another episode that's sure to spark your curiosity and leave you with plenty to ponder.
Until then, remember that sometimes less really is more. Embrace the power of simplicity, cultivate gratitude, and choose to live a life that is rich in meaning and fulfillment, not just in stuff.
Happy reading and happy choosing.